The girl's voice cut through the dusk like a knife through canvas. "Please don't take our mama." Asterisk dust curled in the wind, catching in the dying light like smoke from a far-off fire. The ground was dry, cracked, and covered in old hoof prints and wagon scars. In the near distance, beside a sagging homestead where the windows had no glass, two barefoot girls stood clutching their mother's skirt. Her dress was torn, blood had dried at her lip, but her back remained straight, eyes sharp. She didn't cry. Not in front of them. 5 men on horseback surrounded the house. 2 were marshals. The other 3 wore fine coats and cleaner boots, company men, railroad boys. The kind who'd never split a log or buried a body, but talked about land. As if it had no soul. The woman, Clara, didn't speak. She held her girls close. When one of the marshals reached for her arm, the youngest girl screamed. A mile away on a rise scattered with sagebrush and stone, Wade Collier sat atop a buckskin gelding and watched it all. He'd been riding north since spring. No trail. No real plan. Just dust in his mouth and something in his chest that wouldn't let him breathe easy. And now, there she was. Clara Bell, just as he remembered her, older, thinner, but not broken. He hadn't seen her in over 10 years. Not since the war ended and the world stopped making sense. Not since he'd left without goodbye, thinking it would protect her. He reached inside his coat and pulled out the old photo, faded, frayed at the corners, a woman holding 2 swaddled babies. Her eyes haunted, hopeful. Wade hadn't believed the rumors when he heard them weeks ago in a Cattletown saloon. Widow. Raising twins out near the tracks, someone said. Land dispute with the railroad. Old claims from before the war. He'd leaned in closer then. The twins were girls. Looked like her, someone said, but had that same wildfire gaze as the man who left her behind. Wade had finished his drink, thrown coin on the bar, and left. Now he watched the scene below, with a stillness that didn't come easy anymore. The marshals were loading Clara onto a wagon. The girls clung to her skirt. One was dragged back, kicking, until a company man scooped her up like a sack of potatoes and tossed her into another wagon with canvas sides. Clara's voice cracked, then, not with fear, but fury, the kind only a mother can muster. Don't. You touch them. Wade's hand found the grip of his Colt, but didn't draw. Not yet. His breath was shallow. Wen caught his coat, and he remembered the letter he'd never sent, the one where he tried to explain that he didn't leave because he stopped loving her, but because the man he'd become wasn't fit to stay. After the war, he carried too much death, too many ghosts. He'd thought walking away would keep her safe, but it didn't, not from this. The wagons rolled. The girls' small faces peeked through the canvas flaps, eyes wide, chins trembling. Wade didn't move. Not right away. He waited until the wagons were almost out of sight, heading west toward the tracks, then turned his horse and rode the long arc around the valley, fast, but not loud. He didn't chase. He hunted, quiet, practiced. The way he used to move behind enemy lines. By moonrise, he reached the rail crossing where the tracks met a logging road. The camp there was temporary, a fire, 2 tents, and 1 makeshift cage cart. The girls were curled inside on straw, trying not to cry. Clara was tied to a post near the fire, blood on her wrists from rope burns. Wade stayed in the shadows. Watching, he counted men, 4, all armed, 1 asleep, 2 on drink. The 4th, a foreman, by his stance, paced near the fire. He kept his back to Clara, as if she were no more than a nuisance. But Wade noticed how often he looked over. His shoulder, like he was scared, like he knew something was coming. When the fire burned lower and the drunker men started nodding off, Wade moved. Not with noise, not with threat, just quiet purpose. Like a ghost coming home. He reached the cage cart first. The girls saw him, and froze. One pressed her hand to her mouth. The other leaned forward and whispered, "Are you real?" Wade nodded once. She reached through the bars and touched his coat like it might vanish. He didn't speak. just pressed a finger to his lips and moved on. Asterisk when he reached Clara. Her eyes were closed, but she whispered, I knew you'd come. Asterisk he flinched. Like she'd hit him, her eyes opened, they locked. So much passed between them that couldn't be spoken. I was wrong, he said. You were late, she replied. But her voice cracked. Asterisk he cut her ropes with the knife he wore hidden in his boot. She fell forward into his arms, breath shaky but alive. For a long moment they just stood there, breathing the same air again. Asterisk then a twig snapped. One of the men stirred. Asterisk Wade stepped back into the dark, dragging Clara with him. He led her to the cart, picked the rusted lock with the same skill that got him through Confederate prisons. The girls spilled into Clara's arms like birds freed from a cage. One was sobbing. The other just stared at Wade. Asterisk, you're my daddy, she whispered. Not a question. A memory. Wade choked down everything rising in his throat and nodded. Come, he said softly. Asterisk they ran. Not in a straight line, not toward the road. Wade took them through the brush, down a dried riverbed, into the trees where their scent would scatter. Asterisk at dawn, they found an old shack tucked into the pines, probably a trapper's, long abandoned. Clara fell asleep with her arms around the girls. Wade sat outside, staring into nothing. The sun rose slow, cold, and for the first time in 10 years, Wade let the ache in his chest open. He took the photo from his coat, now torn at the corner, and folded it in half. His hands shook as he placed it gently on the wooden step beside the door. Asterisk inside. The younger girl stirred, sat up, and watched him through the gap in the wood. Asterisk, are you going to leave again? She asked. Asterisk, he couldn't answer. Not yet, not until he faced what was coming, because somewhere out there, the men weren't done. Clara's arrest was never about the land, it was bait. A rope left dangling for a ghost they never stopped hunting. The scout who turned witness, the man who'd once testified against the very railroad boss who now claimed half the frontier. Asterisk they wanted Wade Collier. Asterisk and now they'd found him. Asterisk he looked to the sky, cloudless, empty, endless. Then he stood and started planning how to burn the devil's tracks to the ground. Asterisk. The storm didn't break with thunder. Asterisk it came in silence, snow falling before its time, wind curling low through the canyons, and the scent of smoke on the cold. Asterisk by the second night, the girls had stopped asking when they'd go home. There was no home to return to. The cabin was ashes now. The land seized. The world stolen from them with paper and a polished signature. Asterisk they walked quietly, all of them. Wade led, Clara in the middle, the girls behind. The path wasn't marked, just faint deer trails and creek beds still frozen beneath their boots. No fire, no talking. Every breath turned white in the air. Asterisk at dusk, Rosie, the younger twin, stumbled. Wade caught her before she hit the rocks. She looked up, eyes wet and defiant. I ain't tired, she said, though she clearly was. Wade crouched beside her. The girl's coat was 2 sizes too small, patched with thread and old war fabric. He reached inside his saddlebag, pulled out a scarf, gray, frayed, once part of his old uniform, and wrapped it around her neck without a word. Asterisk, she blinked up at him. Mama said you were fast as horses, she whispered. She said you were brave. He didn't answer. They moved on. Asterisk by nightfall, they reached the burned-out shell of an old chapel. Just walls and charred pews, no roof. Wade checked the horizon, black sky, no stars. Trouble was still hours behind. But closing in. Asterisk they bedded down beneath the collapsed pulpit. Wade took first watch. Clara leaned against a stone column, holding the girl's clothes. When she looked up at him, her eyes weren't soft. Asterisk, you think they'll stop? No, she nodded like she'd already known. I should have fought harder, she said. You survived. Asterisk, I didn't want to survive. I wanted you to come back. Asterisk, he looked away, jaw clenched. Then I read your letters, all of them. Asterisk, Clara blinked, stunned. You got them? Asterisk, he nodded slowly. Didn't open most of them. Couldn't. Asterisk, she didn't speak after that. Neither did he, asterisk, but when the wind shifted, bringing the sound of horses from the west, Clara didn't flinch. She just curled the girls closer, and Wade quietly stood, hand on his rifle, asterisk, the riders didn't pass. Nearby? But they were there, searching. Wade could feel the hunger in their pace. These weren't lawmen anymore. These were bounty men. Railroad hounds, asterisk, he waited until the last hoofbeats faded into the trees before he slung his coat over Rosie and stepped beyond the chapel ruins. Asterisk, he needed help, not guns. Not law, just, direction. He didn't expect to find Isaiah. The old man was waiting by a half-dead pine, his rifle balanced across his knees, smoke curling from a carved pipe. Asterisk, you lookin' thin, Wade Collier. Asterisk, Wade froze. I thought you were dead. Asterisk, been trying? Isaiah grinned, his teeth white against dark skin. But death ain't hungry enough for me yet. Asterisk, Wade stepped closer, boots crunching frost. How long you been watchin'? Asterisk, long as I needed to. You're slower than you used to be. Asterisk, I'm older. Asterisk, Isaiah studied him. You're also alone. Asterisk, Wade gestured back toward the chapel. Not anymore. Asterisk, Isaiah's eyes flicked. Clara? Asterisk, and two girls. Asterisk, silence hung between them. The cold pressed in. You know why they're after her? Isaiah said. I know they're after me. Asterisk, that too. Asterisk, Isaiah stood. His leg trembled a little, from age, not fear. He handed Wade a worn envelope. Asterisk, she left this with me, he said, 8 years ago. Told me if I ever saw you again, and if I still believed in mercy, I'd give it to you. Asterisk, Wade held the envelope like it might burn through his hand. The paper was soft with age. He didn't open it. Not yet, asterisk, you're gonna help us? He asked quietly. Asterisk, I ain't shooting for you, Isaiah said, but I'll point the way. Wade nodded. They returned to the chapel before sunrise. The girls were still asleep. Clara was awake, watching the snow fall through the open sky. Asterisk, she didn't ask who Isaiah was. She only said, I hoped you'd bring someone. Asterisk, Isaiah tipped his hat. Ma'am, asterisk, they moved again. This time east, toward the gulch where Isaiah had a hidden camp. Years of trapping had taught him how to vanish. The railroad men wouldn't find them there. Not yet. Asterisk, at the camp, tucked beneath rock and pine, Isaiah brewed a bitter tea from roots that made the girls gag. Wade sat alone at the edge of the firelight, staring at the unopened envelope. Asterisk, Clara came to him slowly. Sut. Beside him without speaking, then softly, it's about them. He turned to look at her. They have your name, she said. Both of them, I couldn't bring myself to take it off the paper. Asterisk, Wade opened the envelope with careful fingers. Inside was a drawing, crude crayon, 2 girls with pigtails holding hands with a tall man in a brown hat. The man had no face, just a shadow where it should have been. Wade swallowed. They used to ask who you were, Clara whispered. I told them you were a good man, a brave man. That you had to go away, but you'd come back. Asterisk, did you believe? It, asterisk, I wanted to. Asterisk, he looked at the drawing again, the faceless man. The little girls. The field of yellow around them. I'm not who I was, he said. I know. He folded the drawing and slipped it into his coat, right over his heart. That night he stood. Guard again. The wind cut sharp, but he didn't feel it. His eyes traced the dark trees, the faint shimmer of frost on pine needles. He thought of Clara's hands, still rough from the forge where she worked after he left. He thought of the scars on her wrists from the rope, the tear in Rosie's coat, the way the girls looked at him like he was still worth something. Asterisk, in the distance. A train whistle blew, long, cold. Isaiah stepped beside him. They're building a gallows at Timberline Junction, he said. Show trial, just like the war days. Railroad owns the judge. Witnesses paid, sheriff's quiet. Clara's to hang by dawn if they catch her again. Wade didn't move. I won't let it happen, he said, his voice low. Asterisk, Isaiah studied. Him. Then you best ride soon. Asterisk, Wade looked down at his hands. They still trembled, not from fear, but from memory. Asterisk, I left once, he said. I thought it would keep her safe. Asterisk Isaiah's voice was a whisper. It didn't. Wade nodded. He turned, stepped back into the light of the campfire. The girls looked up from where they lay, half asleep, clutching each other. Asterisk Clara stood. Asterisk Wade looked at her, looked at them. Then he said it, not loud, but certain. I'm going to bring you home. No one replied, but in the way Clara reached for his hand. In the way Rosie's face lit up, just for a second. Asterisk he knew he wasn't a ghost anymore. He was a father, and by morning, the devil would know it too. The sky over Timberline Junction was the color of bruised steel. Snow had stopped falling, but the cold pressed in like it had hands. Nothing moved on the tracks except wind and the memory of trains. Asterisk Wade stood alone at the edge of the old freight yard, saddlebag slung over one shoulder, rifle across his back. Blood from the wound in his side soaked through his shirt, slow and dark. He hadn't bothered to bind it tight, not yet. Not until it was over. Asterisk the gallows had been built just beyond the telegraph house. Not high, just enough for spectacle. A crowd was already gathering, men with clean coats, company men, a few with rifles leaning against crates. A judge stood beside a crooked wooden table, stamping papers like it mattered. Asterisk, and at the center of it all, Clara stood in a black dress, wrists bound, boots dusty from the road. Her mouth was set like flint. Her eyes searched the faces. Asterisk Wade didn't move yet. Not until he saw the girls. They weren't there. He exhaled slow, good. Asterisk Isaiah had taken them at dawn, tucked them behind a church ruin outside town. Wade had promised he'd come back. Rosie didn't believe him. Not at first. She just stared, silent, while her sister held her hand. Now he walked forward, no ceremony. No threat, just bootsteps on hard earth, steady and quiet. One of the company guards spotted him and straightened. Then another. By the time Wade reached the edge of the crowd, every eye was on him. Asterisk Clara saw him. For a flicker, her breath caught, but she didn't call out, didn't move. She just stared like she had all those years ago when he left. Without saying a word, Asterisk the judge cleared his throat. You're interrupting proceedings, sir. Asterisk Wade didn't stop. He stepped onto the gallows platform, unarmed hands raised slightly. Asterisk, she's not yours to hang, he said. Gasps rippled through the bystanders. The judge narrowed his eyes. You have no jurisdiction. Asterisk Wade reached into his coat and pulled out a badge, old, tarnished, federal asterisk. She's protected, he said. By this and by this. Asterisk, he threw a bundle of documents at the judge's feet. Records, land claims, forged papers with the railroad seal, and one letter from Washington that bore a different seal entirely. Asterisk, you know who I am. Wade said quietly. Asterisk, from the back of the crowd, a man stepped forward, not dressed like the rest, no tie, no weapon. Just a long wool coat and a walking cane carved from elk bone. Bannon Reed, the land baron, railroad king, and the man Wade once exposed during the war for selling troop positions to the Confederacy. Asterisk, well, I'll be damned, Reed smiled. Wade Collier. Thought you died in Tennessee like a good little ghost. Asterisk, I did, Wade said. But I crawled out. Asterisk Reed stepped onto the platform, waving the judge aside. You made a mess of things, son. Thought you understood. Men like us, we don't stay down, we rise. We build tracks, we own rivers, we move the future. Asterisk, you kill people, Wade said. You steal land from widows. And now you're going to answer for it. Asterisk Reed laughed. Who's gonna make? Me? You? That badge is 10 years out of date and no one here gives a damn. Asterisk, I do. Wade turned. Behind him, Isaiah stepped from the alley, rifle raised. Slowly, others followed, townsfolk, trappers, and a few old veterans who hadn't forgotten what men like Reed had done. One of the guards lowered his weapon. Then another. Reed's smile cracked. I should have killed you when I had the chance. He hissed. Asterisk. You tried, Wade said. Now it's my turn. Reed reached for a hidden pistol inside his coat. The shot rang out before the barrel cleared. Wade didn't flinch. Reed staggered. Blood bloomed across his chest like spilled ink. He fell hard, cane rolling from his hand. Silence, then chaos. People scattered. Guards dropped weapons. The judge slipped off the platform and vanished. Into the crowd. Clara hadn't moved. Wade turned to her. Reach for the ropes at her wrists and cut them loose. Asterisk, she looked at him, not with gratitude, not with fear, just 1,000 things all at once. I told them you died, she said softly. Asterisk, I almost did. Asterisk, she reached for his face, fingers, brushing the scar on his jaw. You came back, she whispered. I had to. Asterisk behind them, Isaiah barked orders to the crowd, keeping things calm. Wade turned to step down and stumbled, his leg buckled. Blood ran faster now, soaking the bandage at his waist. Clara caught him. You're hit? Asterisk. It's nothing. Wade, he collapsed to one knee, breath sharp. She crouched beside him, her voice breaking. Asterisk. You don't get to die again. Asterisk. He looked up at her, eyes full of things he'd buried for years. I'm not leaving this time. Not unless you make me. Asterisk, she didn't speak. She just pulled him close and held him like the war had never taken him. Asterisk, the next day they buried. Read without ceremony. No one claimed the body. Asterisk, Wade spent 3 weeks recovering in a back room of the old telegraph house, with Clara tending his wounds and the girls drawing pictures on the walls with charcoal and chalk. Asterisk, Rosie finally spoke. To him again. She climbed onto the bed while he slept, placed a folded piece of paper on his chest, and said, Asterisk, next time, don't be late. He opened it. It was another drawing. Asterisk this time. The man had a face. Winter passed. Slowly. The land didn't forgive. But it stopped bleeding. Asterisk by spring, Wade was walking again. The girls ran through the tall grass near the edge of town, chasing each other like laughter was new. Clara hammered shingles onto the roof of a small cabin built from the bones of the old chapel. Asterisk and Wade, for the first time in over a decade, let himself sit still. Asterisk, he sat on the porch, whittling something from pine. His rifle leaned beside the door. His badge hung above the mantel, untouched. Asterisk, Clara came out, wiped her hands on her apron, and sat beside him. They didn't speak much, Asterisk, but when Rosie called from the field, Papa, come see what I found. Wade stood without hesitation. Asterisk, the sun broke through the clouds, and the wind smelled like wildflowers. Asterisk, and for the first time in forever, he didn't look back.